strives to represent each of her clients with the value and respect they deserve. She is a trusted and well-respected real estate professional, and now she has joined a group who shares her vision of putting clients first. She is now with Conservis Real Estate Group and welcomes the opportunity to serve you and your family. Please call her today at 423-360-0092. That's 423-360-0092. Or go to christina.conservisrealestategroup.com for more information.
You are listening to the home of Blue Devil Sports. This is Gate City Sports Radio.
And we are back here live from the campus drive-in interview. Had a lot of fun right there, Chris.
I'm out of breath.
Good.
That was a whirlwind.
Good group of guys. Again, our Blue Devils take on Wyatt Central in less than 48 hours from now. As well, of course, according to Chris, it's 500 some odd yards. I'm going to say it's a little closer.
528 according to Google.
So Google. Google's a conspiracy about the man. So, all right, we were talking about Northeast Tennessee.
I think John could have run that in about 10 seconds Friday night.
Run, Forrest, run. He was. He thought somebody was behind him because he wasn't getting it. All right, so take us through Northeast Tennessee real quick.
Well, we're going to skip over the game we already previewed or already summarized.
What was the score of that one, just real quick?
Okay, so Daniel Boone 28, David Crockett 20.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Boone stunned the world Friday night with this one. Neither one of us picked them to win.
Nope.
Defensive back Daniel Lusk, he was a man among boys. He knocked down 2 passes in the end zone in the final 19 seconds and then tackled Crockett QB Cade Larkins at the 4-yard line on the game's final play to seal it. Boone scored early on Crockett by taking advantage of a mishandled punt and then turned right back around and returned another Pioneer fumble, and they were leading 14-0 in the first quarter, and I think it just shell-shocked Crockett, and they never could really get rolling after that. Boone never trailed in this game. This week, Boone goes to Cherokee. That's going to be a good matchup. I would have picked Cherokee 2 weeks ago. Now I'm not so sure. Crockett heads to Morristown East.
Yeah, and of course Lusk, which we'll talk about him with our premier pharmacy players. Of course, he also had 199 yards in the game, kind of a jack of all trades. But Crockett has lost 2 in a row now. They were rolling. They weren't really tested. Now they're starting to get some pushback. It's going to be interesting to see come playoff time what happens with them.
Well, another game I wanted to mention, Sullivan East 21, Sullivan North 14.
The Sullivan East Patriots.
The Sullivan East Patriots. It took, Joe, 372 days for Sullivan East to get a second win.
And they got it.
Last team they beat? Golden Raiders.
Golden Raiders.
They've had their number. This game was just ugly. Honestly. 17 combined penalties. That didn't deter the Patriots. All the scoring took place in the first half. Raiders coach Preston Patrick gave credit where it was due. I thought he had a really good quote. He pretty much said they wanted it a little more than we did. This week, North goes on the road to Cloudland, so I think they've got a shot to right the pirate ship. East hosts Greenville, so no. I think their win streak just stops at 1.
I mean, probably to play that well and then to look at Greenville. Of course, we were talking about Central running that gauntlet where they had Greenville and, some of those teams they had right in a row that didn't bode well for them. So
the other game I wanted to mention was Sullivan South at Greenville. Our own Tanner Cook, I'm going to plagiarize him a minute because I thought he had a great hook in his story in the Times News. He opened with, "Sometimes one play can define a season." After South's Ethan Bergeron scored on a 1-yard run, Elizabethton senior Carson Stressman burst through the Rebel line on the extra point attempt, got a hand on the ball just enough to knock it away, preserve the win, 14-13. Elizabethton outgained South 306 to 300 yards, but the Rebels had 15 first downs compared to Cyclones' 8. Literally this game came down to a coin toss and one hand on the ball on one extra point attempt. This week, Elizabethton looks to complete their first 10-0 regular season since 1951. That shocked me when I saw that stat.
Wow.
I would have thought Elizabethton would have had several during that time period because they're always a pretty competitive team. And they go on the road to Sullivan Central, so I think they'll get the job done. And South goes on the road to Bristol, taking on the Vikings of Tennessee High. And that's going to be another big challenge for Sullivan South.
Should be a good game. Again, Tennessee High, of course, knocked off Crockett, but then, of course, so did Boone. So how good is the Pioneers right now? This will kind of be one of those tests that we'll see and what happens. So going through a few other scores from, again, the Friday night's October 25th results. Hampton blanked Unaka 64-0. Again, they are playing on another level. They've got the inside track in that particular division. Happy Valley 13-6. They got back on the winning ways after they lost to North, 13-6 over Trinity Christian. Science Hill and Dobbs Bennett, that was 23-17, I believe, was the score there.
Let's talk about last year. Let's talk about the 26 in a row Dobbins Bennett had over Science Hill.
Oh, well, yeah, but of course, I think they're somebody said they were making shirts for this game. I don't know the whole deal with. I mean, do you seriously?
I don't know anything about it.
Okay, all right. Which we'll see.
No, I really don't.
Volunteer. We talked about the upsets, and Larry and Andy's not had the best picking season, but they picked this one and picked it right. Volunteer 40, Unicoi County 28.
I'm still not sure how that happened.
Volunteers been pretty close. They just never been able to put everything together, but they beat Unicoi County. Big win for them. As we get over into Virginia, Chilhowie knocked off Grundy 42-6 ahead of their big matchup with Patrick Henry, which took care of Honaker last Friday. So again, Patrick Henry and Chilhowie, the number 1 and 2 seeds in the playoffs right now. In 1D, they play each other this Friday night. Eastside knocked off Thomas Walker in a slight upset, 37-12. Graham beat Richlands 37-10. Holston upset Hurley 28-22. J.I. Burton knocked off Castlewood 28-7. Lebanon got their first win of the season as they beat Virginia High 28-20. Ridgeview blanked Abington in a game that we thought might be close, but the Ridgeview would win. They put it on the Falcons at home and again knocked off Abington, shutting them out 41-0. Rye Cove beat Twin Valley 38-8. Tazewell knocked off Marion 61-21, and Y Central beat Lee. Again, that is the team we've got to play Friday night, which is Y Central. So,
my one consolation in picking these games last week is you and Tanner basically stunk it up about as badly as I did.
Yeah, it wasn't the prettiest thing, but again, of course, there was, like I said, those upsets when you talk about Crockett that beat. Got beat by Boone, and of course the Volunteer and Unicoi. Of course, a lot of things going on right now. A lot of injuries with a lot of these teams. Right now, I've got a 4-game lead. Talking about the picking panel over Tanner. Again, this week and next week is the last 2 weeks of the picking panel. You're a couple games behind Tanner, and then you're a couple ahead of Larry and Andy. Larry and Andy went for the gusto, ended up 7-8 last week with their picks. So again, they try to get it all back in 1 week. From what I've seen this week, it will be more of the same from Larry and Andy. So they're going to try to get back into it. Talking about a few games coming up. Of course, Dobbs Bennett at Alcoa, Boone at Crockett, or Cherokee. South's at Tennessee High, Happy Valley at South Green, North is at Cloudland, Unicoi County at Johnson County. Of those Tennessee teams, which game do you think is the most intriguing?
South at Tennessee High. I think that's got the makings of a good one. Here's my useless bit of trivia for you, Joe. Lynn Swan, perhaps you've heard of him, born in Alcoa, Tennessee. Moved to Southern California, I think, when he was about 4 years old. Imagine if he'd stuck around and would have been at UT with Condridge Holloway. Oh, what could have been.
What could have been. So I think an interesting game will be that Boone at Cherokee. Boone has an opportunity to, again, for a home playoff game after they were 1-4. They lost Charlie Cole. everybody sort of wrote them off. But
I was going to say they're healthy now, though.
They're starting to
And
get healthy.
You could see, because I know they had very high expectations at the start of the season, and I think now we're seeing, again, what could have been.
So they've learned to play without him, and now if they were to get him back during a playoff run, you never know what may happen. So, again, I think an interesting one will be Boone at Cherokee. Over on the Virginia side, Union is at Abington with, again, Mountain 7 championship aspirations on the line. Chilhowie at Patrick Henry. The only team the Rebels have lost to the last 2 seasons has been Chilhowie. They've knocked them off in the regular season and in the playoffs.
Still waiting on my shirt.
They are 0-4 the last 2 seasons. We'll see if they can do it. And, again, please send Mr. Carter his shirt from Patrick Henry.
Anybody up around Glade Springs, send one down this way, please.
Honeacre is at Ridgeview. John Battle at Lehigh. Grundy at Tazewell. Holston at Eastside. Twin Springs at Thomas Walker. Of those Virginia games, I think the Twin Springs at Thomas Walker, again, Eastside knocked off Tom Walker last week. Twin Springs, both these teams have outside shots of the Cumberland District. Of course, Thomas Walker plays Norton next week. Twin Springs at 4-4. They need some help getting in the PowerPoint ratings because they had one of their wins was against one of those teams that forfeited, so they didn't get any extra points. So they really need that ball game. Is there anything on that?
That Union and Abington game, to me, looks kind of intriguing. Abington's just I've not been able to wrap my brain around them this year. You seem to get one extreme or the other with them. Being at home, they may give Abington a little run for their money, or Union, a little run for their money.
Again, I think Union, a very physical football team. They showed that against Ridgeview. Of course, if you're a Gate City fan, you have to feel pretty good because we went toe-to-toe with them for most of that ball game, if not outplayed.
Well, both those teams.
Yep. Actually.
Union and Abington.
So, again, you've got to feel good if you are Gate City and the way things are going. So as we go into the last week of the regular season for Gate City, there's 2 weeks left in Virginia. Ridgeview is still the number 1 seed. They have clinched the number 1 seed, so they will be at home throughout. Union at number 2. Right now, there's a couple calculations where Graham can catch them. Most likely not, though. You're going to be looking most likely at Union as the number 2 seed. Graham at number 3, and then it gets kind of interesting from there because you got Richlands at number 4, Y Central at 5, Tazewell at 6, Gate City at 7. Then you drop down. Marion is the last team to get in. They are the 8th seed. Battle, Virginia High, Lebanon, and Lee. Virginia High, Lebanon, and Lee all have been officially eliminated. The only team left on the outside looking in is John Battle, which would have to have a lot of help. Marion would have to lose out. John Battle would have to win out, and a few things would have to work out their way.
So if the playoffs were to begin today, Gate City being a 7 seed, would that put them against Union as a number 2 seed?
Be traveling back to Big Stone Gap to take on.
I wouldn't mind another piece of Union.
So, and again, of course, that the microscopic press
well,
box
that
we
is
were
true.
in. So,
Maybe we could just do it outside again.
Yeah, we may just we might actually do that.
Do that from the stands.
So anyway, of course, getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. However, though, with a win over Y Central and some other things that can happen because Y Central is a 6-2 football team. This Gate City win will drop them to 6-3, but they get power points for all those wins. Plus, they play Grundy next week. They could finish 7-3, and we could get additional points. We have a shot at catching Tazewell. Tazewell, again, that Southwest District's pretty tough. We could go all the way up to 6. Now, of course, we'd be looking at maybe Graham or even Richlands. So some things still to work out. 3 through 8 is pretty much wide open.
So when we beat Y Central, though, we're going to really pick up some points Friday night.
We will have. Now, the only thing that will hurt us is that we won't have any more games.
Right.
Everybody else has only played 8. We've played 9. So
I kind of like that week off, though. Gets everybody healthy right before the playoffs. Personally speaking, selfish on my part, I'd a lot rather go to Big Stone than Graham.
Chris.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I would too. For several reasons.
Well, I think the fan turnout would even be better at Big Stone. So in a lot of ways, I would almost be okay with Gate City staying where they are.
Yep.
Not work out in the long run for them.
If it does, and again, of course, a lot of movement can happen here in 2 weeks. As we drop down to the 1D, Patrick Henry again, as we mentioned, in Chilhowie, 1-2. That division is still wide open. J.I. Burton started the season 0-2. They are now 6-2, and they are climbing. They started off as the number 13. They are up to number 3 in the latest PowerPoint rankings. Tom Walker, with that loss to Eastside, falls to 4. Castlewood at number 5. Even though they lost to J.I. Burton last week, they still remain in the 5th slot.